We're gonna go into something today that I'm kind of excited about. I woke up last Sunday having had a dream that I was preaching. And I was preaching here, that I was preaching on the subject of praying redemptively. And so I said, Lord, what's that about? So this week he's been unpacking what that means. So we're going to take a look together. And I'm going to explain to you what 4D printing with God is. So this is going to be exciting. Living and praying redemptively, redemption is to take something that's messed up and to bring something good out of it, right? If you redeem a bad situation, it means you turn it into good when it was sour. And so seeing the universe as an open system, not a closed system. A closed system would be the way things are, the way things are. God has set everything in motion and walked off. Theologians call that deism, where God just started stuff and walks off, and he's not really involved in the system anymore, not involved in what goes on day in, day out in our lives. No, living and praying redemptively means seeing that God actually wants to speak into situations. He wants to work into human history now, today. He is as active today as he was in the biblical narratives that we see in the Old and New Testament. And so it's co-laboring with God to redeem and to restore that which is messed up. It's simultaneously looking forward and backward with God's perspective. What has happened, how God sees what's happened, and what's coming and how to act into it. It's connecting with the divine eye of the Lord. And I love astronomy. I love pictures of nebula. And so that nebula that's called the eye of God that's pictured here, I love it. I know it's not the eye of God. I know God's eyes are different. The image to me evokes that God is bigger, and he sees through and into things that you and I can't see. And so it's really walking by faith and not by sight. So that's my definition, and here are my examples. Joseph is my first example. I got any kids in the house? Where are the kids? There's a few kids. That's a gray-haired kid. I see you. My family, we read the Christmas story, and Justin did a great job last week of talking about the Christmas story and how this season, to be able to talk about the birth of Jesus, read the biblical narrative is so powerful. So I did that with my family, and every time recently that I read that story, you know what pops out to me is Joseph's dream life. It just in my face. And it just intrigues me how this Jewish man had dreams that shaped history, had dreams in Revelation that showed him how to parent this kid that he couldn't have possibly parented by himself. So I'm going to start with Matthew 1, and then I'm just going to go throughout Matthew and pick out what it looks like to live and pray redemptively through Joseph's life, but also through Jesus and then through the disciples. So here we go. Matthew 1:18. This is how the birth of Jesus the Messiah came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. And that terminology, he will save people from their sins, was a clue to him that this is the Messiah we're talking about. This is the long-anticipated Messiah. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet, the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. And they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord commanded him, and he took Mary home as his wife. He didn't consummate the marriage until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. Wow. Wow. Did you catch the momentous nature of what just happened? A guy who was looking at the situation with human eyes, the wife that I'm going to marry is pregnant. It's not me, so I need to just quietly do something that's not going to bring her shame. The worldly way of thinking, even the kind and gentle worldly way of thinking, was what was going on until God broke in. Walking on the basis of divine revelation rather than human perception. That's what I see here. he suddenly gets divine revelation, and it changes everything. He reinterprets the whole situation based on God's perspective, not his. Now, I'm not just talking about dream life. I'm not just saying, those of you who've never had a dream, you're left out of this. No. There is a God at work in human history. He can speak to you while you're driving down the road. He's spoken to me through billboards. He's spoken to me through the tag of the car in front of me that has a little, vanity plate that says something to me. The Lord speaks day in, day out. He speaks through his word. He speaks through his Holy Spirit. And it's not only dream life, but it is that too. And once we get God's interpretation, it changes everything. And then there's course correcting based on what God said. I'm going this way. I'm going to divorce her. Opposite. No, actually, I'm going to take her in and take on the public disgrace, and I'm going to own it because I have had revelation from God. Here's how this impacts our prayer life, y'all. We need to be praying consistently, definitely, all the time. What's your perspective, Father? What's really going on? What do you have to say about the situation? We are praying by faith and not by sight. Well, it doesn't stop there. The dreaming keeps going. The revelation keeps coming to Joseph. So we see in Matthew 2:13 that a scene has happened. We think it's quite a bit after the birth of Jesus. We think it's possibly he's a year old or more. And the Magi come, and Herod says, "Oh, looking for him, huh? Oh, Bethlehem's where you're going to find him. Well, you let me know because I want to worship him too." And he really wanted to do him off. He really wanted to kill him. And we see that the same God that's speaking to Joseph through dreams is speaking to the Magi. And they share notes of their dream life, and they all had the same thing. We don't need to go back to that guy. We need to go back home a different way. So they do. And when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Sound familiar? "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so it was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." What I see here is following the instructions of the Lord, even when it seems counterintuitive. I have in my house the little kid who's going to be the Messiah of this nation. And yet I'm being directed to go to a different nation, to an enemy nation. What? That doesn't make any sense. But it's for his protection. It's because there's danger. And so he's told in the dream very specifically there's a danger, and here's who it is, and here's what you need to do about it. Now, you and I look at this story and we kind of go, what about all the other kids? There were a lot of kids that died in Bethlehem. And all I can say is, if they had a dream life and they had a connection with God, I bet God told them too. What we do know is that he told this daddy, and this daddy did something about it. Heeding warnings and avoiding catastrophes. How many times have you gone a little slower in the highway only to see an accident happen? How many times have you had a check in your spirit and not done something, and you start catching on that it's actually the Holy Spirit warning you? We've got to take really close notice of these warnings from heaven that come. Now, not everything is a warning from heaven, and God doesn't warn us of everything. But when he does, we better be watching. We better be praying through the warnings that we get, pushing back against and restricting the plans of the enemy.